just going to record here. All right, everybody, welcome back. Episode 2. We decided to shoot episode 2 on the same night as episode 1. So it's kind of going to be a continuation, but it's actually on a new topic that we only just episode 1. So, but anyway, welcome back. I'm here again with Jeremy, aka Jeremy Chergesling. That's his new trans name.
That's my stage name.
Not transsexual, not trans anything else. Not that we're saying we have anything against them or not. Just saying that he's changed his name, not legally, but just for the fun of it. Yeah, and I've been drinking tonight. Buffalo Trace, I think, is the name of it, and Jeremy is on his last Wild Turkey Rare. But what we wanted to get into is
I guess we could call it
comedy.
Creative Minds.
Yeah.
Comedy.
Yeah, comedy, and I'll look a little bit into the creative mind regard because we talked a lot about the way that we see the world is a little different from people. But yeah, just getting into a little bit of comedy, and sorry for the viewers when they watch the video, if they watch it on YouTube, because this podcast at the moment is being filmed on my laptop on top of a pillow, which are connected to my legs, and I'm sitting on my bed. So this is very unplanned. It's kind of the nature of it for the first 2 episodes. Jeremy's joking himself off. Just kidding. Just kidding.
Yeah, just kidding. That was like 2 seconds. That's far too long.
And we're straight to the comedy. So the first thing that we wanted to touch on was, well, firstly, I guess we should introduce ourselves again. So hi, I'm Joe. I'm the host. I am also a musician, whiskey lover, comedy lover, music lover, and I just enjoy community, and I'm trying to bring the whiskey community together and trying to bring thinkers into that because we dive into our thoughts on things. It's not necessarily we're not trying to tell anyone what's right or what's wrong. We're not trying to push an agenda per se. We're just expressing our thoughts and feelings on certain things and expressing ourselves, like who we are. We're getting that out there. So so Jeremy, we were talking briefly about characters because what Jeremy and I have done, which we talked a lot about on our first episode, so I won't go too hard into it, but I guess we are quite comedic in our way of looking at the world, particularly Jeremy. Like, he's got a really out there way to look at the world, but it's quite fun. Once you're into it and you get it, it's a really fun way to experience the world through Jeremy's eyes. And so we play a lot of PUBG Mobile, and we interact with people on there in quite funny ways. We're always trying to find people who use their microphones so that we can just have a bit of fun, keep the humour going. So what Jeremy often does is comes up with characters, and I wanted him to elaborate on some. And as I remember them, I'm going to write them down so we can talk about them because they're just a little bit of fun. So I don't know how long this episode's going to be. I don't imagine it's going to be as long as the first one, but who knows? Because we might end up starting to talk about comedy itself and about things like that, which through the episodes of this podcast is definitely going to be something we're going to get into because I have a friend who's most likely going to be on this podcast. Like, as in, I want him to be. It's just when he says he's ready. So he will probably be on episode 3 because I probably won't record another episode till him and I can do it together, unless Jeremy and I come up with something else. Because generally I'll always have a guest. Well, generally I want to have a guest, but I may do my own thing sometimes. Who knows? But anyway, yeah. And so him and I, this other guy, are really into comedy, like as in stand-up comedians, just anything that's funny, podcasts. Yeah, the list goes on, and I'll leave that for that episode. But anyway, getting into Jeremy's comedy characters, mate. How many would you say you have at this stage?
Jeez. It's hard to know actually, because I forget about them,
Mm.
but they definitely come pretty quickly. Just thinking of weird or funny predicaments that people can find themselves in, and relaying that in a comedic way can kind of hit home as well.
Yeah. I think one thing
So,
people do is come up with voices, and the delivery on them is what makes the character great. Because the character can, the cool thing about Jeremy's characters is he could probably put them into any situation to make the situation funny. It's not the other way around. It's not the situation makes the character funny. It'll be the character makes the situation funny. And I'm just going through writing now. So one I'd love you to talk about, which I'm not sure if you remember, but it is one of your more recent ones over the time. But like when we actually started talking about characters, it's probably one of your first that we actually call the character. Um, uh, and it's fucking Shay's grandma. That's my best impression of that character, but I'd like Jeremy to delve into that further because it's one we used for probably a few times on PUBG, and we just thought, oh, it's so freaking good. Like the it totally sounds like a grandma. You can imagine what she looks like. You can, and she's always just talking about cheese. So whatever situation, she seems to go into cheese. But Jeremy, if you feel like you can elaborate on that further, or like how did that character begin?
so that particular character, I don't quite remember how it came about, but it's an old lady. She's definitely from the UK, and she is she's probably the cousin of Wallace and Gromit. She's a fanatic of cheese.
She's like the one that immigrated to Australia.
Yeah, she immigrated to Australia, but I don't remember where the inspiration came from. But there's generally an inspiration somewhere. But
That conversation, hey, and just like
yeah,
shooting the shit, trying to like just we shoot out shit to eventually the dirty water filters out, and all of a sudden the clean water comes out, and we start to come up with characters, like particularly Jeremy. But then as soon as Jeremy comes up with a character, my mind goes to a skit. So I'm always trying to come up with a skit for that character, and that's where our comedy collides with these characters. Um, because the next character I wanted to bring up, who would interact with two other characters a lot, I'd imagine. And just give me a sec. I'm going to write another one down. But do you remember the inspiration behind Coonabarabran Man? And he's always like, Coonabarabran. Now, you've got to say it because you're the one who came up with them. So,
great. So there's two that I can think of. Just elaborate a bit more.
well, I think he's almost become his own character separate to the ones we're going to talk about next. So, like, well, as in that's my because he always speaks fast, and he's a happy kind of go lucky Australian, in from what I'm seeing, but he's from Coonabarabran, and he always brings the conversation back to Coonabarabran somehow. So he's always like, "Oh, Coonabarabran, oh, Coonabarabran."
So this character, they don't really have names, but this particular one, he's like the one that never really moved out of his hometown, and he thinks the sun shines out of it. So he's got he's got nothing better to talk about. So he's just, oh, Byron, yeah. Conan Bourbon. So he's basically stuck in a loophole and has probably lost a lot of brain cells by just talking about the same thing
Yeah.
for about 40 years straight. So,
So what age do you think he is? Like 60 or something?
oh, everyone thinks he's 50, but he's actually 60
Right. So
because
he
aged
well.
they give him the benefit of the doubt, but he's just done shit all with his life. So I think.
That's awesome. And that leads me into actually the most recent character because he's similar, but um, but what I love about this one that I'm going to bring up, so this one I've called the Beanley Bogan, and he is similar because he talks about Beanley, but it's not just about Beanley. He'll talk about anything, but generally he gets asked questions, and his answer will always start with B because he's the Beanley Bogan. So when he's asked, I'll interact with you now as the you're the character and I'm an interviewer, right? So I'd be like, hey, so where'd you grow up?
Beanley.
And okay, sweet. And what's your favorite type of food?
Beans.
Oh yeah. And what car do you drive?
BMW.
BMW. That's amazing. So see, this is kind of stupid, right? And so I can just see. We're going to talk about a few more, but I'd also eventually like to talk about what the future is, and also bring up a character that actually has more of a story than the rest, and I'll bring him up soon. The ones I reckon who would interact are the Coonabarabran man and the next two guys. So one of them's called the Servo Freak. That's the name I've given him. And Jeremy, tell me the Servo Freak.
So basically, the story behind the Servo guys is that he works in the service station in the middle of nowhere, and he probably would have like 5 customers or 5 people a week come through and get fuel. Now, he's actually a really nice dude, but the thing is, he's got an unfortunate habit. So he kind of talks like a troll. So and has this excessive laugh about him. So someone will come in, they'll get petrol, and he'd just be giggling for no reason. But it's just his way of socializing. So someone thinks it's like Wolf Creek kind of shit where he's going to murder them, but actually a real top dude. So anyway, someone would come in and he'd just be like, just the unleaded. And then they're just like, what the hell? And then they pay for it, and he's like, do you have a receipt for that one? And anyway, so yeah, he's just laughs a bit too much excessively to be nice, I guess. And
with the vowel E, right? So when he asks them if they want to receive, he's always like, do you want to receive?
Yeah, he gets stuck on his E's a little bit. He does have a little bit of a speech impediment. But one thing about the poor guy is he is on Tinder, and he's also looking for a girlfriend because
he's lonely.
He's lonely for one, but the other thing is the service station has a real bad reputation because the female bathrooms are always horrendously bad condition. because he's got no one to clean him. He needs some kind of chick to go and clean him for him. So he's
He's not allowed
on.
to because he's a male.
He can't. Yeah, that's right. He can't go in there, even though there's no one ever in there. So he's on Tinder, but he lives in the middle of nowhere, and he just keeps getting the two same chicks pop up because that's the only chicks within the closest 150-kilometer radius. Is old Cheryl, who's got no teeth, and Beryl, who's got no feet. So
You know what's though is one of them's got no teeth, which is E, and one of them's got no feet, which is E.
So he kind of like has a bit of a whinge to the other truckies that pop in, which leads to another character who's grew up in the gem fields.
Gem fields
So
driver. That's one I was going to bring up.
Anyway, he complains and he's like, Beryl's got no feet and Cheryl's got no teeth. So yeah, he's stuck in a bit of a time warp, and yeah, he loves his job, but
loves his job but doesn't interact with people enough.
Let's just say everything that he sells has a best before date in the survey, and everything is past the best before date in the survey. That just puts it into mind how old this place is.
How old he is. But I wanted you to get into a bit of not only the relationship between him and the Gemfields truck driver, but also the Gemfields truck driver. One of his major stops is also like the Emerald pub, but because the Gemfields are located near Emerald, so that's how we picked the place. Is actually because I used to live in Emerald, which I mentioned in episode 1. And there's this place that Emerald people always shit on just as a laugh. They always shit on the Gemfields. And so, and I love the catchphrase of the Gemfields truck driver. Do you remember what it is?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
So the Gemfields truck driver is basically this dude who's able to turn a 2-minute conversation into about 10 minutes. He can basically say anything and make it drag out for so long because he's just like your classic down to earth Aussie dude, but
always has
he's just up. He's stuck in a truck for too long, for 24 hours a day. So when he does talk to someone, he just really wants to keep it going. So anyway, yeah, not since fucking last time. Yeah. He's always talking about the old days. So he's like, yeah, not since last time, eh? Yeah. Oh yeah, saw me mate down at Bourbon. Yeah.
Been a long time. Yeah, and
been a long time, eh? Not since last time, eh? Yeah.
It's not kind of simple, but he as well. But he's always talking about it like a woman who he ages ago. Like it's not since the fucking last time I saw her. Eh? Yeah. He's always being asked about it, or always brings it up into the conversation. So I just love that character because he's always nostalgic because I guess nothing good is happening in his life now, and he's keeping his head up. He's not down and out. But the only interesting things he has to talk about is the last time.
Yeah. Oh, so you seen any nice women? Oh, not since the last time, eh? Yeah.
So, I suppose as I can remember, but I'm sure that you've come up with more characters. But one common theme, and I was going to make a joke about your life, but it was only a joke. But I was going to say they all seem lonely.
The Gemfields, I think one of the recent ones is the Gemfields truck driver had a brother, but he's always talking about, oh, since the first time, yeah.
Oh, there's got to be an origin story. Oh, this is the character I really wanted to bring up because this will bring us in the next part of this conversation that I want to talk about. So the character is called, well, I'm not sure what he's called exactly, but the skit with him in it is called Business Time. And I've wondered whether you're going to continue that series because what I wanted to talk about was YouTube and this character. Then I was thinking how if we end up writing skits together or even yourself with these characters, is that a plan of yours to kind of put them on YouTube, to kind of like, or is one of these characters just to be your own schizophrenic person with your mate?
Actually, that does remind me. There was a another character. We did record it, but haven't uploaded it yet. Anyway, it's basically this dude. You'll remember this when I say it, but this dude who invented a new number.
Ah, the number. Yes.
Twop.
And his name is Tenderloin Tenderson.
That's right. Yeah, Henderloin Tenderson, and he invented a new number.
Yeah.
And he always talks about how they invented this number.
Yeah. But and so what I remember from that character, explain what happens when he talks about the number through the doco that you kind of.
So basically, the story goes that he's in a documentary because he's now famous because he invented a new number. Anyway, so the number is TWOP, and it represents 2.5.
I thought, yeah, I thought it was.
but anyway, he's like, instead of saying 2.5, it's quicker just to say TWOP. And basically, during this whole documentary, is not even he knows what it stands for. So the very first part it stands for 2.5 as like a number, and it goes 2 3/4.
Yeah, the next time you wrote
And
it, 2 3/4.
2 4/8, and then it's 2 6 inches, and then it escalates from there. It's 2 5 kilometers, and then it just gets out of hand from there as the documentary goes along.
I can't wait for it to come out. So do you have similar plans for the Cheese Grandma, Coonabarabran Man, Servo Freak, Gemfields truck driver, Beanley Bogan, and to do more with Business Time and Tenderloin Henderson? Do you have plans further, or are they kind of just sitting up there and you're thinking about what you're doing? Like, what are you thinking with these characters?
Well, I haven't really thought of anything in particular yet for them.
You're just saving them in the bank.
Yeah, they're just kind of just for fun now, here and there. I might come up with something that they could all be a part of, maybe. But
yeah, because there's also another character I just remembered. There's
yeah.
the landscaping dinosaur.
Oh, that one. Yeah. So
This one time we were at his family's holiday home in a secret place. I'm not going to say because one thing that the people like about that place is that it stays fairly uncommon. Like travelers come through and they get to enjoy it, but the privacy is what people like. So I'm not going to say where it is. There's this holiday home there. And anyway, one time, like Jeremy, I think it was around Christmas that we were there. So Jeremy for Christmas got this inflatable dinosaur suit, and he just put it on, and the front lawn needed mowing, and so I kind of just I knew this was happening, so I just got out my phone. And luckily, I recorded it all on Snapchat, and saved it, so I've still got it all saved and everything as far as I know. Anyway, um, and and I just follow him out, and he just freaking starts the lawnmower up, but he walks out the back of the house, grabs the lawnmower, just trucks on. He's like, just freaking get the job done. It looks like it's just the funniest thing to watch. This person in inflatable like T-Rex suit mow a lawn. Like, you just don't expect that shit. So this is what we're exploring here is definitely Jeremy's humor, like and he's just like really good at comebacks and other things like that as well. Like, Jeremy's a very in the moment comedian and a skit comedian, and like, I mean, comedian is in that's just what he does. If he chooses to make it further and blow up on YouTube, that's awesome. Like, it seems like we'll see what he does with that, but it's Jeremy's very interesting because he's like an untapped kind of just encyclopedia of music and comedy, and he's also got plans with modeling. He's also got plans with inventing potentially like different systems and ways to make things efficient. That's something we've talked about because he works for telco, and God, sometimes Jeremy just comes home from work and will call me on the drive home and just be like, man, today was long and stuff, and it's definitely like an outlet for him, to do this comedy and to think of different ways to build towards a better future for telco and for other things like that, and to do modeling and everything like that. So yeah, I'm keen to see what you do with it in the future, and I think people will find you more funny once you actually put them out there. Um, and so we'll have to. I would love to come up with skits with you if you can. But we'll see. One thing I did want to talk to you about is well, there's two things. Well, it's kind of ties into one thing, but what are your interests just to debrief, like, because I kind of wanted to see if we could, if not, this will be a shorter podcast because it's kind of like just get to know us a bit more. It's a bit of a more in depth of Jeremy's comedic value, I guess, or comedic attributes is a better word. But I also want to talk to you about, Jeremy, like, what things do you do to unwind? What kind of strategies do you put in place to do good things for yourself and in your life, and how to keep yourself on top of, you know, um, anything from just stress to crippling kinds of feelings to um, unsure about future, or anything like that that comes up. What do you do? And also, what kinds of things, like, I'd like to lead that conversation into what kinds of things do you do that you do because you're a man? Like, what kind of things do you want to do because you're a man, and what kind of things do you think are valuable for a man? Those kinds of things are what I'd like to talk about. And if you think we should save them on the podcast, that's fine. But at least, what kinds of things do you do to unwind? Because we've talked about in the first episode that overactive mind, and we've talked about how it's like the outlet is comedy, the outlet is your interests and stuff like that. But what kinds of things do you do to settle down the beast, to put it in a weird way, I guess, or to settle down the mind? Yeah, what do you do?
Time outdoors is a big one. Like out in the wild, I guess. Fishing, just experiencing the world like unfiltered, like how it is, not, going out fishing and then not just that, but also then working to live off the land as well at the same time,
Yeah.
to a degree. But yeah, just being out there and just enjoying how it is.
Yeah.
And even though some things about it can be quite harsh, it's also very, very beautiful at the same time. So definitely outdoors, not particularly just fishing, but
That's
all
definitely
other.
it.
Yeah, that's one of the main drivers. But that's what, yeah, just experiencing all the elements, how they are, and just
Mm.
becoming a bit more realistic in the way things are. Like, if you're not going to be the on top of everything, you'll be overtaken by something else, I guess. In the wild, like if you're not productive, you're not gonna succeed, or if you're not performing in a way, I guess, then you'll be outperformed.
Yep.
It's kind of like a harsh, sweet but harsh reality. It's
Yeah.
it's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. That's actually interesting that you bring that up. So, because that's kind of goes into a little bit of what it is to be a man or a good man in some people's opinion. I think I think there's good men who don't necessarily focus on these things, but I think that men who focus on these generally are down to earth, simple people who want a good, just a good life. So I was gonna say, you brought up some things there that I've just really hung on because of where I'm at. But so I wanted to start with, you said unfiltered and kind of in nature, and that kind of led me to want to talk about a little bit. So maybe we'll have to talk about it another time, or if you want to talk about it now, is what do you consider filtered? Do you mean like society because of the media and because of the government and things like that? Like, do you mean time away from that in nature to just see the world the way it is? Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, that's it pretty much. Like, like survival of the fittest kind of thing.
Hmm.
And basically, if you're not strong enough, nature's not going to give you a crutch to lean on. You're going to probably get eaten or something like that. It's a harsh reality, but it's also the way of life for a lot of people, actually, but also nature in general
Yeah.
operates like that.
Yes, it does, and a lot of
Yeah.
people don't know that by just being in just because the majority of population these days is focused in a city environment where these people go and buy their food, but they don't know what that where that cow came from. They don't know its story. They don't know anything like that, and so they get these ideas about that are fed to them through the media, and that probably originally came from a place of empathy somehow for animals, but really have been blown out of proportion. And these people have no idea. I'm just going to come out and say that right now. These people have no idea how nature works outside of the city because they don't go out into the bush. They've never picked up a rifle in their hand. Um, they've never had experiences like yourself where you've actually had wild dogs run at you and you were happy to have the rifle in your hand that day because you and your brother both put both those dogs down. These wild dogs, like in Australia, just to put some perspective on it, in case people don't know, even in Australia, but also in America and things like that. So in a lot of places, you get stray dogs, right? But what happens is our stray dogs, when they became strays, they actually mixed with dingoes because those breeds can interbreed. And so what you ended up getting was these dogs that were built bigger than a dingo, because a dingo is like a half step between a coyote and a wolf. It's kind of like that. It's kind of but once they mixed with other dogs that were like big bulldogs or German shepherds or things like that that became strays, and Kelpies in particular, which is a bred breed for farming and work. So they're very active, and they actually have dingo in them. That's how. So we created the Kelpie, but then when Kelpies become strays, they interbreed with wild dogs and dingoes, and they create these monsters that kill for sport and that eat. And dingoes actually have that in them anyway. If you actually talk to a hunter, they'll tell you that dingoes will rip out the stomachs of sheep, and they won't even eat the sheep. They'll just hunt and kill these sheep. And this is what nature's really like. And this is what a lot of city folk don't get the opportunity to experience. And then what they get fed through the media is, oh, farmers are cruel to animals, or like, I'll only eat something free range because then that animal's happy, which part of me agrees with free range. I like free range. Um, but they get all these ideas fed to them, and some of them are just plain untrue, and some of them are misinformed. And so I think it would do everyone a good favor to go out into the reality of nature. And the reality of nature is man to get to where we were fought nature to get there. Like as in not fought nature, maybe regulated nature and stayed on because yeah, like one thing hunters do that people don't realize, people really give hunters a bad rap for shooting animals, but if they didn't control deer populations or control kangaroo populations or things like that, you would not have food on your table. Or pig populations. That's a big one in Australia. Hey, Jeremy, is wild pigs.
Yeah, Texas is in America as well. Certain areas
Yeah,
they have that too.
yeah, and they have lots of white-tailed deer and stuff. I've done
Mm,
research on that, but not lots.
yeah, but also the wild dogs, they are built completely different. Like
Yeah,
they
dingoes are pussies compared.
it's like, yeah, like they're not like this. They're not like a stray dog where they're just misunderstood and they just want a
They're,
pat. They're not
they're,
like
they're
that.
not
Like
a hound pup.
no,
They're not
they are
vicious.
they are just, yeah. It's survival of the fittest. And if you weren't, most even short people are still taller than them. But if you weren't taller than them, or if there was a pack of them, they wouldn't hesitate. They would
They'd rip
attack
you
you.
apart. And
Yeah,
actually, most dogs in Australia are wild dogs, not dingoes, because they've been like those wild dogs are bred and bred and bred, and so we have a massive problem with those in Australia, particularly around sheep and around cattle who have calves, because they will just eat or kill for the fun of it. They'll do both, and so hunters actually protect wildlife, and most farmers and most hunters are actually grateful to the wildlife for the meal that's on their plate. Like, so they actually do treat it with respect, um, and uh, and it's just crazy the lengths that some of these animal activists will go to, um, because like I heard, like an article came out. This vegan tried to show how badly sheep were being treated when they went on ships. And so what they did was they snuck onto a ship that was crating like sheep, like like live sheep from one country or one state to another, so that they could be killed in another abattoir, so that they were fresh. Um, and this person turned off the fans in the store, like in the place that these animals were being stored for the trip, safely stored and being supplied fresh air with the fan. This animal activist turned off the fan to take a video of them all panting to get his point across. His point that was false, because if he had looked at that objectively, and maybe he did, and maybe he's just a dickhead, or maybe he's this kind of loopy, but those animals were being looked after. They had the fan. They wouldn't have been doing that if he left the fan on. So this is kind of going to be like a recurring topic on this podcast, but where the media and where the government lies to try and further an agenda. Um, and I think there's people kind of noticing this, but something that Jeremy and I appreciate is a simpler life and a life lived off the land, because that's actually real life, and that's where humans have not only come from, but could go back to, depending on how the world goes. Because um, this topic gets blown wide open, and will like to heaps of different topics, which will over time through the podcast be, addressing. But there's things like, does the dollar actually mean anything anymore? There's things like, how secure are we? How much control do we actually have, and how much freedom do we actually have over our own lives? And that's been tested in this coronavirus time, you know. But I wanted to jump into like, because that's the filtered society. That's what I reckon is that's the, and I think that's kind of what you've been talking about, Jeremy. Is that what you were kind of talking about? Is that's what the filtered society is? The filtered life is living in places where you don't experience what real life is, and also where you're getting your information from is bias, or is, which most places are, like, even everyone has their biases. So um, you know, it's important to be open minded. But when every media outlet is feeding the same story, there's some shit happening, because that's just not how, everyone's got two sides of the story. So when there's only one side being preached, you've got to wonder what's going on. But I wanted to drag that next into simplicity and self sufficiency, because I think simplicity is something over time I've become more and more keen on, because for one, I've got that same kind of mind that doesn't like to shut off all the time, but I find it shuts off when I actually make my life simple. Like when I am out on your property, Jeremy, um, with James and or when I go to your holiday home with you, or when any of those times I spend in nature, even going on a walk in nature, the simplicity calms the mind, and you start to hear nature, and you start to feel it, and you become part of it, because that's really what humans are, as part of nature. Um, and our place in it is to regulate it. So what do you find is what reasons do you like simplicity?
Well, one thing about the simplicity of nature is it makes sense.
Mm.
Uh, it's consistent.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you're not going to if you're not going to make any effort to go, I don't know, get something to eat,
Then you
it's,
right.
it's pretty simple. But also, when you are a part of it, you become in tune with it too. And when you become in tune with it, it's kind of like, it's really, really cool. It's like you walk through a door,
Mm.
and everything just kind of opens up to you. Like, uh, you can kind of understand that. What, for example, like with the weather, you'll know in advance what the weather's going to do. The
Nature
seasons,
controls
for
it.
example.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you can read the seasons and stuff like that, and you can kind of start to see differently. You see different things, like specific times of the moon phase within the month. You'll know, like, where to go to find food, and you also become really at peace too. And Yeah, it's just a really odd feeling.
Yeah.
Just like a lot of people go camping. It's like that. It's like that. It's like when people go camping, that kind of feeling that they have
Mm.
when they go camping. That's like what it is.
Yeah, and I think that that goes into the next topic. Just so you know, we're at 45 minutes, so we've got about 15 minutes left on this segment. Um, this is just how Anchor works, ladies and gentlemen. We'll iron these kinks out over time. This is only episode 2. Um, but yeah, what I was going to say is this kind of brings it into the next topic, which is something I'm very passionate about. Is self sufficiency. Um, so, like, when you go camping, you realize you have to provide your own heating, otherwise, you'll be exposed to the elements. You'll have to provide your own shelter somehow. A lot of people, had caravans and stuff, but back in our more primal days, we'd literally have to build it out of the nature around us. Um, we'd so um, so if you don't have a shelter, you'll again be exposed to the elements and at risk of dying. You have to hunt you have to somehow provide food. So a lot of people bring food with them, but um, sometimes if you're a farmer, you literally actually will only go into town once a month or once every 3 months and fill up a freezer. And if you need to make anything work in that time, you need to kill an animal or you need to harvest your things. So you got to learn land. I think these are all important skills, whether you end up actually needing them for survival or not. I think these are all important skills for men and women. But like as a man, I feel the obligation, um, and I don't feel that as a burden. I feel that as such a joy. But the obligation to, you know, become more self-sufficient all the time. So one thing I've done is I've learnt a little bit about how to split firewood, how to make fires. I bought Dad for his 50th a fire pit. So and I'm kind of the one who puts the fire together every time, and I want to get better and better and better at it, right? So that's why I love hanging out with you and James, Jeremy, because we're always doing a fire at one point or another. Um, uh, but yeah, just
Like I said,
yeah,
all you need is that Molotov.
so, Molotov. So yeah, that's why we always bring alcohol. There's self sufficiency 101, ladies and gentlemen. Bring an extra bottle of whiskey because you may need that to survive in many other ways. But then again, that's a joke, but that actually brings it into the next thing with that. Whereas alcohol can clean a wound, alcohol can start a fire. So then people go like that's actually one of the reasons long ago people started creating alcohol was, and they even used it to barter. Like there's so alcohol's definitely had its place in history, but self-sufficiency is just important because you become handy, you become responsible for your own life. But with that responsibility, even though there's some discomfort, there is a lot of freedom, and I think freedom is something that so many people are happy to be comfortable even if they're not free, and I'd rather be uncomfortable but free. I think it's important as a man to be able to provide for yourself and for those around you that you love, and to also protect yourself and those around you that you love. Um, and I think a way to always have those skills happening is to always try and be learning more and more about being self sufficient, whether that's fire, whether that's getting better at your job, whether that's, uh, you know, building relationships, whether it's camping, fishing, hunting, um, any trade that you wish to learn. Those things I think are essential skills for humans because we've used them for thousands of years, and um, we may yet need to use them again. Who knows? Um, yeah, so I think I've kind of talked about all I wanted to talk about with that for now, but I'd love to touch on these topics again in a later podcast and have some real things to delve into with them. Um, is there anything else you wanted to mention with these topics, Jeremy?
Not at this stage.
Yeah. Sweet. Well, um, yeah, this one's going to be shorter than the last one then, because we're right on the 50-minute mark now, basically, and these segments do 60 minutes, so we'll be under the hour for our second episode. Um, so thank you so much for listening, everybody. I hope you enjoyed your whiskey. I hope you enjoyed the chats we're having. Um, we'll keep these going. They'll be more and more kind of planned out, but with the same kind of flow that we have in conversation. I really enjoy the flow of the conversation. I enjoy the topics we're talking about, and I want to expand on them further. Um, yeah, I can't wait to see what the places that this podcast goes, the places that Jeremy and I go with our careers in music, comedy, this, and all the other facets of just our individual selves. I can't wait to. I know this is only episode 2, and I'm starting with a following of literally Jeremy and myself, but uh, it will be great to eventually hear from new people who will come back and listen to these when channels grow um, and content grows. Um, so I'm really looking forward to experiencing more with the community we're going to be building out of this. Um, and yeah, um, so I hope you guys got a bit of joy out of Jeremy's comedy, his character comedy, and a little bit of a teaser gel. So Jeremy, tease what you want with your YouTube channel, and yeah, and your Instagram.
At the moment, um, I've got 2 YouTube channels.
Yeah.
The main one just being like uh, the music stuff.
Mm.
Second one is going to be for the
Skits and
not so serious stuff.
yeah, yeah,
So there's a couple of ideas already for that one. I haven't finished yet, but say for example, uh, one some songs again, but they're going to be not your typical serious songs.
mm.
They're they're going to be basically a skit in a song.
Okay,
Yeah, you know already one by far. If I said the one
okay,
word, you'll know
all right,
exactly what it is. Stan.
yes, gotcha. Yeah, yeah. So
So
what is this
that's
channel?
what's that?
What is this channel? What's it called? So people
Um,
driving.
it doesn't really have a name yet. Uh, it
What's it
was going
called?
to be
Or
Henderloin. It was going to be Henderloin Tenderson, but Henderloin Tenderson is more a character. So I was thinking just making it Jeremy Chergesling
okay, so
for that one.
keep on the lookout on Jeremy's music page, and all his pages at the moment are for people to follow YouTube and Instagram at well so yeah just they're chase.ling, that's spelled CHASE, and then a full stop, and then LING, chase.ling. You can find him on YouTube and Instagram. I myself am Josiah, um, on this podcast known as Joe, and you can find me at Josiah underscore music underscore official on um, yeah Instagram, on TikTok, and on YouTube, and yeah, so Jeremy's playing with his phone on the bloody Zoom. Um, and so yeah, over time this will build. Like I'll put this on YouTube. I'll do like I'll make an Instagram page because it's all been in one night, and Jeremy, in between the first episode and this episode, I actually got a notification to say that Spotify has approved the podcast to be on there. So it's actually on Spotify now. And so yeah, basically, Anchor's doing its job at the moment, but like over time, I'd like to have a bit more control over this. So we'll see how that works. But anyway, really enjoying how this content is coming together, and I thank you guys for listening. Be safe, enjoy your whiskey, um, and yeah, chill out in the simplicity of nature, and maybe watch a stand up or two. Some things to just give yourself a laugh in the times we live in. Um, so, uh, yeah. Jeremy, have you got a sign off?
Salutes.
Awesome. And yeah, I'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much.